Okay, so today we're going to talk about the progress that's been going on. As you can see here, this is kind of where I'm at. Now, I put the filter in. I still have, just to add more of a placeholder, because I want to make it more realistic. But I have to kind of bone up on my hard surface modeling there to do some of the things I want to do. The other thing I want to do on that is right now, and let me show you, let's minimize this. I'm using kind of a cylinder to represent the water, and that really should be more of a plane, because that's how the water comes out if you actually look at the filter itself. So I've been playing with that, and it actually should be fairly easy. I basically took a grid, and I used a bend, and then I used a thicken to give it some geometry. And if I get it the right size and substitute it for the cylinder there, I think that's going to look better and more realistic. The other thing I did, as you can see in the, where did here it is. Whoop. It went into hiding. Let me bring up the Redshift render here. Open render view. And hopefully it is being, see where it is. Well, let's see if I can get it to come up. See where it is. Because, see, it comes up real. This is the other thing I wanted to show you. Let's see if I can find it. There. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here is I have gravel. Now this was a little bit of a challenge. Okay, so what I want to show you is now I have gravel. And you can see it's coming in, it's got some color to it. And I'm going to move that aside and show you what I did to get that. Right here. This always takes a minute when you try to do something. This is getting to be kind of heavy. And when I was looking at bubbles, one of the examples she specifically didn't use, try to do it in flip fluids because it was kind of heavy. So sometimes you have to, change things up a little bit because the way that you were thinking might be a little too much. And this is, again, this is not a, this is really taking its time. There we go. Okay. So sometimes look like it was taking a while. So what I did is I started with under grains. I use wet sand, and what that did is here's my grain source, and that is a box that I started with the box, and it added the grain source, wet sand, and rest. Added these nodes. And this has different offsets, different packings, and so on, and how stiff something is, or how different things to control the grain. When you go up here, it also creates an auto dop network. And I added the ground plane. Now all this is your input, this is your pop input, so it's really a kind of a pop network where they add pop grains and a sprite, so it's using a particular picture, which you can change the grain color, and so on. So you can change all that. And I added the ground plane because it was fun. Now, the ground plane was a bit of a pain, okay? The ground plane would be visible when I tried to render it. And I'm like, what's going on here? Oh, this is important. Under the grain particles, I had to click render objects as particles. And because this is where there was also a grain particles here. Yeah, under grain particles. Render object as particles. That's important. And so the key things here is you have to exclude it in the DOPNet so you're not looking at it here. And also you have to exclude it in the Redshift settings. So this is out and Redshift under, I think this is main, nope. Under objects. Or you're going to have the ground plane showing up, which you don't want. So that's critical. Again, the other thing that is very important is in the grain particles, which is essentially where it caches everything. And what I had to do there is under render, is it under render? Under Redshift object. I did mesh deformations there. And let's see, there was a render as, under particles here. Render object as particles. So those are the things you have to change to actually get it to render. So that was very important there. Now, the other thing, let me make sure I have, yes. The other important thing I was looking at is rocks, because the aquarium has rocks very often as a place for fish to hide or things like that. So this was a rock, and I'm going to put the link in the text down below. They had a series called, from Houdini, the Houdini channel, called Magic Market Procedural Rocks. And I followed along with this. This makes a very involved rock. And so it's, you see all the details and all the steps here that you follow. And you can make this in HDA. There's also some things that they put in their own networks to reuse, like intersection clean. And there are other, this was his preferred way of doing it. But then he had a lighter version. So this was, this is one way. Now, if it lets me, I'm gonna, let's see if I can show you simple rock. So this is a simpler rock I made, just using a sphere and a transform subdivides. I use a mountain And the thing is, I have to research how to do the materials with this, because whether it was the complex or the simple rock, it just did not look like what I was expecting. You can open the render view here, and you can see there's not a lot of detail here. So there's going to have to be some more work on this to make it a rock that I think is going to work. Because if you look at a real rock that you would put into an aquarium, there's a lot of detail there. And so that's kind of where we are right now. I think we made a lot of progress. We have our gravel, which is the grains. We have our filter in place, even though we still want to do more detail there. We have a basis of rocks. We know how we're going to improve the filter output so it looks more realistic. And there's obviously a lot more to do. There has to be a heater, because all aquariums, unless you're using cold fish, they need a heater. Actually, to model the fish. Not only do the fish have to be modeled, which is going to be a challenge for me, but they have to be rigged and animated. The blocks have been kind of substitutes, things that I put in there as a substitute for the fish. So that's something. Now I may see if I can find a pre-modeled fish, because that'll save a lot of time. So there's a bit to be done, but I think we've made quite a bit of progress. And we're going to take it from there. I think next week I'd like to get the rocks in. I'd like to get the heater in. I'd like to fix the water output for the filter. And then we'll clear the way to working on fish. Oh, and plants. That's going to be another thing. I want to see if maybe I can find some existing plant assets that I can pull in. That's one thing about Cinema and Unreal that have over Houdini. In Cinema, they provide a whole bunch of assets and materials, particularly Redshift materials. In Unreal, they have assets that you can download. You can get a whole bunch of stuff free. Houdini, not so much. Now, the reason I'm kind of focused on that is because I want the sim to be together. If I do the water in Houdini and then I bring it into Cinema, and then I'm going to put the fish in, they're not going to interact with the water the way I want, because the water's going to already be cached. So I need to... Now, one thing I could do is go the other way, is model things in Cinema or in ZBrush and bring them into Houdini, and then I have that animation. Then I can animate them in there, and it's all going to work together. So that's kind of where my thinking is at. So anyway, hopefully this has been interesting, and subscribe if you want to get a notice when I put the next episode in, and I will speak to you next time. Take care.